Think that we all owe Reverend Jackson a debt of gratitude and a round of applause for his being the nation's pastor, to have to go out and to sit with Michael Jackson's family and then to have to rush back here and to be with us. And it seems like wherever there is a tragedy, we can expect Reverend Jackson's leadership, and we can expect him to put himself on the line, and sometimes through much criticism, but it's to make sure that people who don't have a voice, that their voices will be heard. So give it up again for Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend, we appreciate you for all that you do. There is a verse in the Bible where Joseph's brothers sold him into Egypt. And in the end, Joseph said to them, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." And some things that happen and people mean for evil, God ends up working them out for good. That's why when Reverend Trotter prayed, he said all things will work together for good. And even in this situation, some good is going to come out of it. I have been wondering, and this is not to cast an aspersion on any cemetery in Illinois, but I have been wondering, I've been in Chicago for 52 years, and I have never heard of a cemetery that closed. I've never heard of a cemetery that has run out of space. And so the question is, at what point do cemeteries run out of space? At what point do cemeteries begin to fill up? And what do they do when they run out of space? And if they don't run out of space, then is Burr Oak just the tip of the iceberg? Is this happening everywhere? We need some answers, and we need to know. That is why if it takes a license to drive a car, if it takes a license to own a dog, if it takes a license to operate a bus, then it ought to take a license to operate a cemetery. People should not be in the cemetery business and unregulated. You got to have a license to cut somebody's head. The barber got to have a license. Well, then that means if you're going to handle somebody's remains, you should have to have a license. There should be some regulation. There should be somebody who's able to come in and ask questions. There should be some standards. And one good thing about the law, the law can be changed. If there are no regulations today, we can change the law so that by this time next year, there are regulations that regulate this industry. We cannot allow this to happen again. We cannot allow families to go through this pain anymore. We cannot allow people who are trusting that their relatives are at rest and then to find out that that rest has been disturbed. The good news is, for those of us who are believers, we know that there are no souls in the cemetery. We know that there are no souls there. We know that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But even though my soul is with the Lord, I don't want nobody to mess with my body. And so we need to make sure that don't nobody mess with nobody's body. And we're going to go to Springfield next week on Tuesday, and we're going to work with Dan Hines, and we're going to work with everybody that we have to, and we're going to change this law and make sure that all across the state of Illinois that cemeteries are regulated, because we're going to have to close some of them, because some of them are going to have to run out of space eventually. And if a cemetery doesn't run out of space, then something is wrong. We need to watch it. We're going to watch it. You're going to help us watch it. And we're not going to give up until we get where we're going. Thank you, Reverend Jackson, for all that you do.